What's up, guys? This is Carter Thomas with Coin Mastery TV. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, be notified for all the breaking daily news updates. If you're new to the channel, welcome. We are talking about how to capitalize on the biggest financial revolution of our lifetimes by making better, more informed, more profitable decisions. Today, what we're talking about is the weekend recap and what's coming this week. Very interesting stuff, as always. There's truly no lack of energy in the crypto markets. So we're going to talk a little bit about Bitcoin. We're going to go through some altcoins. I want to spend some time talking about what's going on with Tether, because a lot of people seem to be very concerned, rightly so, and confused. So I want to just walk through this, hopefully paint a good picture, give you a couple thoughts I've had about it. And I think that this will be an unfolding thing. Well, we'll just get the discussion going, especially for people that don't really know what's going on. Talk a little bit about NEO and how that relates to the state of crypto, which I think is really helpful and really important for you guys as you start making your picks. This is going to continue to be a very important topic over the next 2 months. And then we're going to end off with strategies, or one strategy in particular that I think will help refresh the investor trader mindset. No matter where you are, I think that this is just a really important thing to dial in. So lots of good stuff to cover. So today we're talking, let's just kick it off. Once we broke through this 8,000, we had a little bit of resistance coming, as we look through that. A bit of consolidation, so to speak. I mean, you can see a very small triangle right there, and then boom, you can see this volume spike right here, and it totally just took off. I think this was yesterday, sometime in the midday or so. And as you can see now, it is just skyrocketing. So you can remember last week when we talked, if I take this back and I scroll off back to the 1 day, just looking at Coinbase's charts right now, as you go parabolic, the daily gains, the percentages will usually stay in line with what they've been, give or take, but the number amount, the dollar amount, will go up faster, meaning the higher we go, the bigger the jumps will be in real dollar terms. Like it might be 5%, 5%, 5%, but that's the nature of compounding. As it gets steeper, those numbers get bigger, but the percentage changes stay the same. The reason why this happens, geometric growth of systems. There's so many people signing up for new accounts, buying Bitcoin. There's no new money coming in. The growth is accounting for that 5%, right? That's just the way the curves work. So we're going to continue to see this. And like I mentioned last week, I think we're going to continue to see this for up for a while, right? The big asterisk on that, which is kind of what we're going to talk about with Tether, is if there is some sort of singular event that drives massive fear through the market. It could be a huge hack. It could be Tether being a complete sham. It could be the US crackdown or whatever. There may be a big pullback before we really go to the next real big levels, 15, 20,000. We may go there first, and then there's a big pullback. But there will be something. I personally do not think it's going to be a very long winter. I think it'll be there'll be a pullback at some point, but then we'll shoot right back up, and then it's real, that's when people are going to start mortgaging their houses if they haven't already, and that's when it gets really sketchy, but also very profitable. So keep that in mind, right? My personal opinion, like we talked last week, at 9,500. Right around there. I mean, that's kind of arbitrary, but that's, loosely speaking, I going to keep a majority of my crypto in crypto. It's just that I'm going to start to look at how I can get really strict about risk mitigation. Do I put in stop losses? Do I consolidate my portfolio so that I don't have like 25 different coins that I got to try to maneuver all at once? Looking at what my levels would be, like what are my buy-ins, what's my profit levels, tax harvesting, all sorts of stuff. So by no means am I like getting out and being like, all right, I'm going to sit in the sidelines. I think that's dumb, right? You can't time a market. But I do think that as we get higher in this parabolic shape, you just got to start playing that game. It can't be all growth, aggressive, bit more, because that's how you end up just eating your losses in a big way. So, moral of the story for last few days: increasing pricing, kind of low volume, but overall, like that's just what the nature of a parabolic curve looks like. So, keeping an eye on this and being smart about it. Now we flip over to the altcoin markets. I think the big altcoin winners this weekend really have been Power Ledger, which we'll discuss a little bit, and Neo, which also had an incredible weekend, huge gains. Bitcoins, I believe they had a big rebrand, which is one of the reasons why they're doing so well. And those are the ones that I was really looking at. This looks like, was it Poet maybe that had a huge gain? But those are the three that I saw had the biggest runs. Similarly on Bitfinex, it's kind of the same story. You could just see these things. Civic had a little bit of a run. I'm not really sure about what Club Coin and I know Mercury was a newer coin, but who knows with all that. So one thing we're going to talk about in a little bit is what drove a lot of this volume is rumors and news, and how it's just getting more and more leveraged. This is not new to crypto. If you are new to crypto, relatively new to crypto, since January, rumors and news have always played probably the biggest role in sentiment, which is what this entire market is driven off of, bar none. That's the only thing that really matters when you're talking about pricing in crypto. But now, the nature, there's so many more people, there's so much more money, there's so much more news outlets, there's so many more people on Twitter, there's so many more Telegram groups, that stuff can circulate so fast that you see these huge spikes faster than ever, especially on the new and or low cap coins, meaning that they will have larger increases in price if they catch that news cycle. Whether or not it's real news or fake news is kind of, it's found out after the fact, but that's really what's happening, because, and we'll get into that in a second. So altcoins are interesting. Now remember, guys, last week what we talked about is one thing in markets is that everybody's looking for a pattern. Everybody's always trying to be like, well, when this happens, I know that this happens, right? So that you can create some sort of system or algorithm or model that gets predictable gains. And the second there's a pattern in any market, it will arbitrage itself out. That's the nature of markets. But one thing we're noticing is that beyond the markets is that whenever there's a huge dopamine related event, whether it be Bitcoin versus Bitcoin Cash, whether it be Bitcoin hitting 8,000, whatever, you will see the dopamine flow other places. So once we hit 8,000, we saw the dopamine flow back to the altcoins. Dopamine meaning attention of all the people in crypto. We saw some huge gains over here. Now we're back to Bitcoin, where we're seeing another big run up 82.50, give or take. And that is one of the patterns that I'm seeing over and over and over. And I think that anybody watching this market from the outside, that's one of the things they notice as well, is they say, wow, this is completely driven by how people feel. So it's something to keep in mind. It's something that you can use to to gauge where the action will be next. So anytime you see a huge run in Bitcoin, as soon as it starts to pause, realize that the action is going to be probably in altcoins, right? And then you just see which altcoin is going to take the bait first. Cool. All right, great. I think that the more important piece of this is let's talk about what's going on with Tether. This continues to be a very big issue in the crypto community, and for rightly so. I mean, if this is all true, which it could be, it's a big deal. I don't think it's as big a deal as, I don't think it's apocalyptic, right? It's not like the world is going to collapse in crypto, but it is a big deal for obvious leveraged reasons. If you don't understand what's going on, okay, so there's this guy or girl, I don't know, maybe it's guy or girl, anonymous, Bitfinex, who is worth at least perusing, maybe following, who is for the last 6 months or so built a very compelling conspiracy theory, or case, I should say, maybe not even a conspiracy theory, around Bitfinex, which is one of the biggest exchanges out there, and Tether, which is which many of you guys see. It's like a crypto that's supposedly one-to-one backed to the US dollar, meaning every Tether is redeemable for $1. That's what it's pegged to. It shouldn't fluctuate at all. And the long and short of this is that Bitfinex and Tether have colluded on some level so that they're printing tethers without having anything to back it up. And that printed money allows for huge margin funding and massive price buoyancy mostly in the Bitcoin markets. All right. So back in, I think, March, a lot of banks, US banks specifically, stopped doing business with Bitfinex for whatever reasons. Coincidentally, at that same time, Bitfinex partnered with US Tether, and all of a sudden, that is when Tether's market cap started to go through the roof, and it started to fund all of Bitfinex's margin lending because they couldn't get US banks to margin lend it themselves. Do you see what I'm saying? So Bitfinex needed money. They couldn't get it from banks, so they went to Tether and said, hey, if you can give us tethered dollars, which are pegged to, quote unquote, pegged to $1, that's going to allow us to keep doing this margin funding. Margin funding meaning you borrow money to make a big bet on price going up or down. And that's what drives a big piece of the crypto markets. So the big debate here is, one, is there collusion between Bitfinex and Tether? Two, is Tether backed by real money, or is it just made up? Is it just printed? Like you can just print dollars? Is that what's going on here? And you can imagine the implications of both of these are pretty big. Now, I'll give Bitfinex credit where credit is due. Who I'll say is a guy. Let's just assume he's a guy, has done his research and he's presented his case with plenty of evidence that's compelling. And if you look at, you can look at the blockchain explorer for Tether, and you can see even in the month of November, I mean, there's like 20 million, 30 million, 20 million. I mean, this is hundreds of millions of dollars being issued from the Tether Central Reserve, or whatever you call it, over to Bitfinex. But Bitfinex and Tether cannot produce a verified audit that proves that they have all this money in the bank. They can't prove that they actually have these dollar reserves. So are they just making it up? Is this just fake funny money that's allowing people to go out and buy Bitcoin on margin that doesn't really exist, right? And then the cycle continues through all of that. And if you really want to get into it, go check out what Bitfinex has written. He's written some blog posts with tons of evidence and data about it. And check out BFX data. If you want to get into the margin funding, you can go and you can see the different rates, and you can see how, like, the supply of margin funds, and you can see how much is being issued at any given moment. And it's not just Bitfinex, right? I mean, US tethered dollars, you can see on Bittrex. There's all these different tethered exchanges. You go on Binance, same thing. Like, it's really everywhere as this de facto currency. Now, so that's what's going on, and the evidence is pretty compelling that there's something shady going on. And I think that if I was on a jury for something like this, I would be, it seems to me like, hey, Bitfinex, why don't you just prove, or Tether, like, just show us the money and this will be over. And they're not doing that. And that's when you're like, guys, like, what's the problem here? I mean, there's so much ammo against you. They say they're going to put out some sort of audit. Bitfinex said this. We'll see. But I do think that it's worth checking this out. However, yesterday I tweeted about how this is the kind of thing, like, I'm not losing sleep over this. I'm not going to bed and being like, oh man, if this is all BS, the Bitcoin and crypto markets are done. And the reason why is, one, $675 million. I mean, that's a lot of money in a $250 billion market cap. What do you call it? Asset class. Now, these are all multiplied. So a market cap of Tether, maybe 675 million right now, but you add that up into all the margin lending, you add that up into the velocity of money, the way $1 can often equate to like $10 of overall market cap. Just the way if $1 is recycled 8 times, for example, the money supply can be 8 times bigger than that $1. That's how traditional central bank governments work, right? M1, M2 money supplies. So that's actually got a bigger impact than just 675. So that's one piece. But I think the bigger piece is that the issue isn't that this is a broken system. The issue is that there's fraud being done right now. In other words, if worst case scenario, if they find out Bitfinex and Tether are colluding in some way, and they find out that Tether isn't backed, theoretically, Tether just is like, you're right, we messed up. Maybe there's criminal charges or whatever. But if they went and got somebody to put up $700 million for them and back it all 1-to-1, and they agreed to do the audits and everything else, the problem would be gone. And I'm not saying it's that simple. I'm not saying that should happen. But this isn't like, it's not like finding out that there's something that's irreversible, you can't come back from. This is just pointing to the fact that the value of Bitcoin may or may not be inflated because of this really criminal activity, if it turns out to be that. Now, I don't condone that, but right, as a crypto investor, as a crypto trader, there are only so many things that I can think about on any given day as it relates to the future of this, of the market, of the asset class, of everything. And I think something like this, while it is a big deal, and it's definitely important to make sure that this sort of thing is not proliferated and people are not getting taken advantage of through wash trading, I don't think that this is the apocalypse. If this all ends up being true, I think that the crypto could bounce back from this quickly, because there'll be something that will replace it. There's enough new money coming in that will offset that, like, oh, crypto doesn't work anymore. Crypto's not worth anything. This is all BS. I think that the price of Bitcoin could take a hit, but there's so much demand for Bitcoin right now that I think we would come back. And when I look at things that could really cripple the price for a long time, this to me just isn't, it isn't a big enough deal. I think something like the United States government banning Bitcoin, and I know you can't ban it, blah, 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 but you can shut down exchanges. That would be a big deal. That would be like serious, because that would stop a lot of the demand that's coming in, and it would put us into like a very long-term regrowth cycle. Something like this, I don't know. I think it may end up being true, but I'm just, of all the things that could crush Bitcoin, I'm not convinced that this is the one. And because of that reason, you just can't fill your mind with stuff that isn't like a massive threat. It's good to know about it, but that's what's going on. So we'll obviously watch this as it unfolds. I would definitely encourage you guys to read through this. He's got some really good blog posts. He's done his research. I'll give him a lot of credit. And I have a feeling he might be right. The real question is, like, is it going to kill Bitcoin for longer than a couple of weeks? No, in my opinion. 2, are there better things for you to worry about if you want to make money in crypto? And the answer is yes, at least for me. And that's the clock is ticking. Like, we do not have years and years of the kind of gains that you're going to see in this market. Like, every day you got to make a decision on what you're focusing on. And like they say, scared money don't make money. So that's where I'm coming from on that. Now let's talk kind of along these same lines, or I guess a little bit of a shift. Like I mentioned, the altcoin markets. Talk about NEO had a big weekend. Let's pull NEO up. And I'm going to scroll out. You can see NEO had an enormous run all the way from 36 to 62. They almost doubled in BTC pairings. And it's had a bit of a sell-off and continues to have a bit of a sell-off. And I don't have, this is not the entire story. I know that there's a lot more to this, right? Like Bitfinex maybe listing them, and there's all these rumors. But from what I could tell, it started from the tweet with this picture that was in Chinese that basically said there's a big announcement coming in 3 days. And this was the start of all these other pieces of news about ICOs coming out and China opening up their doors again and things getting better and better for something like NEO. And this really started to drive a lot of this volume. I mean, think about this. This is I think it's $1 billion currency, and it doubled. It doubled. Like $1 billion. Let's see here. Go to cryptocurrencies. NEO, 2.5 billion. So it was 1.25 billion, give or take, and it went up to 2.5 billion in a matter of a day. And there's obviously more to it than just one tweet or whatever it may be, but that's pretty crazy. Now, as it shot up based on rumors and whatever other news, like the exchanges and the ICOs, and they're going to release all this new private exchange, and China was going to really embrace it all. There was a post that came out that really just took NEO down, and it laid out all these red flags about here's the things that you need to look at that makes NEO look really sketchy. And this is not the only thing, obviously, but this came out on the 18th, and you can start to see that the price of NEO started to go down. Again, I know that there's more to this. I'm not saying that these are the only factors, but this is all just stories. It's perception. It's not even fake news. It is just, I mean, maybe it is, but it's people waking up and going on Twitter and Telegram and Reddit and just seeing what they want to believe and buying as much as they possibly can. And Then one person writes an article about this, and this thing went viral so fast. I saw this in every single Reddit thread, chat room, Twitter, everywhere. And that drove an enormous amount of fear. And then he's got all these people that were rebutting it, which drew even more attention to Neo. And as this whole thing just unfolded, you just saw the price start to go down and down. Now, the reason why this is a big deal, unless there is some much bigger force going on, but from everything I could tell, this was really the main driver, this news cycle. This doubled a $1.2 billion asset on just news and perception. And the reason why this matters to you guys is that, like I was mentioning, we are in this phase. I'm not going back to the Bitcoin chart. We are in the parabolic phase. There is no disputing that. When you zoom out, this is starting to get very, very vertical. The more vertical it gets, the more you are going to see these huge runs and these huge drops. And that can happen on massive assets classes. The idea that you can double a $1.2 billion asset like that off of a couple pieces of news, and then also drop it based on another piece of news, assuming that this truly is the big piece of this whole cycle, that is insane to me. And what that really means is that when as this gets more parabolic, as this gets steeper and steeper, it doesn't matter what coin you own. It doesn't matter how much you believe in it. You got to realize that taking profits at this point in the market is the smartest thing you can possibly do. If it goes up 30% in one day, I don't care if you believe that that coin is going to be highlighted on the president's Twitter account, if Elon Musk is going to tweet about it, and if Bill Gates is going to endorse it all on the same day. I don't care anything. You have to learn to just take profits no matter how much you believe in something, because that's where we're at. And this is just going to get more and more ridiculous on these pumps. And they're going to happen. They're going to continue to happen over and over. Take your profits. Keep some coins in the altcoin, especially if you like the altcoin. But that's the byproduct of this. The stakes are high. The information moves fast. And people are, as things get more competitive, which they are now, people will, they want reasons to buy and sell. They want it. They don't want to miss it again. So I'll leave it at that. For everybody who knows more about this, I get it. There's a bigger picture here, but from everything I could research, this series of events drove a majority of this cycle, which is insane to me. Like, that's crazy. Now, similarly, let's go back. Power Ledger has crushed it recently. And let me be the first to say, congratulations to everybody who invested in Power Ledger. I did not invest in Power Ledger. It actually ended up, the ICO, they were having a hard time, and they didn't raise enough money, and they ended up giving out bonus tokens after the fact. So it kind of hurt the early investors. So the whole thing had I don't know, it didn't rub me the right way. That being said, it ended up being a very good investment thus far for people. So for anybody who did invest in it, who believed in it, hats off to you. That's awesome. And I think the same thing is happening here, where you're getting all these rumors. Like, there's this thing about the Australian government giving an $8 million grant. What people don't realize is that when the government gives a grant of $8 million and there's 15 different parties involved, each party is going to get maybe $200,000, and that money is going to be deployed over 5 years. And it's never as good as the headline. And this has come from somebody who I used to get tech grants when I lived in Maine. It's not what the headlines are for the newspaper, but people read headlines in crypto. That's what it is. So they're driving a lot, the whole Elon Musk thing. I get it. And by no means am I trying to badmouth Paraledger at all. I think it's a cool idea. I hope it does really well. I think it'd be an amazing project. But this is a really good example where you're holding on to it and you may be like, all right, cool. This thing's on fire. It's never going to slow down. Everything's going to keep going up because this is going to revolutionize the solar industry in the world. This is a really good example. Take out your initial investment. Take your profits. Keep the rest in Paraledger if you believe in it, but go for it. The other piece that I want to bring up is a tweet from Crypto Compounding. I owe my profits to a single great advice. Find a trade that you're absolutely confident about. Move a ton of money in. Find a trade that you are absolutely confident about and move a ton of money in, because that's how big investors do it. Gratitude. That's how big investors do it. Okay. And I wrote back, when it comes to making real money in the markets, conviction is greater than analysis. This is a controversial thing, and it's certainly not a blanket statement, but this is something that I firmly am starting to believe in. So first of all, congratulations on making this trade. I think it's really important to keep coming back to this idea where if you are presented with like 25 different charts or 15 different options and they're like, oh, well, here's a trend line and here's the triangle and here's the Fibonacci and here's the thing. It's great information to have, but it's very difficult to make a high ROI decision when you have a lot of options. There's a famous study where in a grocery store, I believe it's jars of jelly or cookies or something, where they have one table that has 2 options and they have one table that has 15 options. And the table with 15 options gets 5 or 6 times the number of customers, and the table with 2 options sells 3 times as much jelly. So the options get the eyeballs, but the decisions are what make the money. And that is very true. And when you look at investors, when you look at traders, when you look at gamblers, pro gamblers, right? Whether it be poker players or even some pro, believe it or not, but pro blackjack players, there's not very many of them, but they all have the same mindset where they do not have 45 different things on their plate that they're trying to do a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit there. They focus on one singular trade. They do everything they possibly can to make that a winner, do all the best research they possibly can to get the best price they can, timing everything. And they buy that one trade now, and then they scalp the profits and go from there. But having that conviction and having that patience, if you want to make like real money, from a mindset standpoint, that is the name of the game. And it's hard because it feels like you're putting all your eggs in one basket, but it makes you also realize that you kind of have to, but there's also a lot you can do to make that risk profile go way down. So if you research Paraledger a ton and you go in depth and you talk to the team and you're in their Telegram group and Slack and you fully believe in it and you have very good reasons and you have your stop losses in place and you understand what you're doing, it is often much better to go after one trade, scalp it when you make the profits, get your original stack back and build your portfolio that way, as opposed to being like, all right, well, I'm going to put 3% in Paraledger, 3% in this, 3% in that. But it's harder to do this, or it's more work, I should say, but it's how people will make the most amount of money. So I just want to give a shout out to this. I think it's scary to a lot of people. And for the most part, I think that the only reason to do this is if you are willing to commit the time and energy required to go and do all the research. And nobody's going to do it for you. I'll tell you that right now. But if you are willing to do that and you put enough money in, that's how things can go big. Zcoin's a good example for me. Like there's a few coins last week that some of the most profitable weeks of my life. And it's because it was a 3-month play, and I slowly built my position and I accumulated, and because I did the research and I believed in it. And even if I told people, I was like, oh yeah, Zcoin. Like if you don't do all the research yourself, you're like, oh yeah, Carter, that's cool. Like what else you got in your portfolio? What's the hot thing? I'm sitting there like, oh, well, Zcoin's cool. And I'm like, yeah, that's cool. What else you got? But like that one trade went up 40%, and it was a big enough position. Like 40% is a huge amount. And I think the same is true when you have something that you can research that does have a position. And I think that you start looking through altcoins, if you just pick 4 or 5 of them that you believe in and just do deep dives on them, and then ask yourself, which of these is the one or the 2 that I would be willing to, that's the lowest risk, highest reward. And this is getting to advanced stuff. It's higher risk, higher reward, but like I said, I didn't get into crypto to get average returns. That means I'm willing to also put in the work to make it happen. And I think a lot of you are too. So I want to share everything that I'm doing, that you're doing, and just open up the doors. Obviously, this isn't financial advice. I gotta start saying that a little more. But make your own decisions. But so it goes. In the meantime, we will keep an eye on the prize. Watch this thing just continue to crush it. And I will see you guys later. Peace out.